Yeah, right. So today I thought of going through the couple of short suttas that are sort of related, a bit of a overlap in terms of a theme. One is Anguttara 313, Apayika Sutta, and then the other one is Anguttara 112, the one before that, but we'll do it after, which is Dutya Nidana Sutta. So I'll just read through them first because they're fairly short, and then we can go through the points, things that come up in questions. So Apayika Sutta says, because there are these three who are destined for deprivation, destined for hell, having not abandoned this. What three? One who is not celibate, yet has undertaken the claim of being celibate. One who, without grounds, accuses a person who is celibate of not being celibate. And one who is such a speaker and holder of such a view that there is no fault in sensual pleasures. Because of that view, he falls headfirst into sensual pleasures. These bhikkhus are the three types of people who are destined for deprivation, destined for hell, having not abandoned this. Bhikkhus, there are these three origins for the arising of action. What three? With regard to past phenomena that are grounds for desire and lust, desire arises. With regard to future phenomena that are grounds for desire and lust, desire arises. With regard to present phenomena that are grounds for desire and lust, desire arises. So, how, bhikkhu, does desire arise with regard to past, future, present phenomena that are grounds for desire and lust? Well, with reference to past, future, present phenomena that are grounds for desire and lust, one repeatedly thinks and ponders them along the same lines with the mind. While one is repeatedly thinking and pondering them along the same lines with the mind, desire arises. When desire has arisen, one becomes fettered to those phenomena, and this bhikkhu I call a fetter, which is the lust of the mind's lust. Thus, bhikkhu, desire arises with reference to the past, future, present phenomena that are grounds for desire and lust to arise. So then Buddha goes and explains the opposite, saying, because there are these three origins for the non-arising of action. What three? Well, with regard to the past phenomena that are grounds for desire and lust, desire does not arise. With regard to the future phenomena that are grounds for desire and lust, desire does not arise. With regard to present phenomena that are grounds for desire and lust, desire does not arise. The point being, removal of desire equals non-action. Removal of karma, removal of action. We'll see that later, obviously, get into more detail. So, how bhikkhus does desire not arise with regard to the past, future, present phenomena that are grounds for desire and lust? Well, one understands the subsequent results of past, future, present phenomena that are grounds for desire and lust. Having known the subsequent results, one turns away from them. Having turned away, having penetrated with the mind, one sees through with wisdom. Thus, desire does not arise with regard to past phenomena that are grounds for desire and lust, and that's, bhikkhu, is the origin for the non-arising of action. Right. So, if we go back to the beginning, to the first sutta, and the three types of people that are destined for deprivation. So you could see that what's in common to these individuals, put it that way, would be like a level of perversion of the truth. Let's put it that way. A certain amount of that kind of existential discrepancy that they maintained, which is what constitutes the weight of depravity, the weight of their karma that will make them, go to hell and so on. So it's not just to say like, anybody that engages in sensuality is destined for hell, but also, of course, it is pointing in that direction. I mean, that's kind of the whole Mara's trap and taming of the senses and everything the Buddha talks about in virtually every other sutta. So, but obviously in this case, it's like the three kind of obvious and, not even so subtle types of intentional choice that results in perversion of the obvious. So the degrees of perversion determine the depth of hell, if we can put it that way. So you could see like what's in common to these things, as I've asked before. It's kind of, so you have a person, well, say you have a person who hears about, oh, sensuality is bad. So sensuality should at least be curbed, moderated, kept in check. You shouldn't just take it for granted and blindly engage with it. And then they, maybe wanna do it even further. It's like, no, I really wanna. I see the problem of sensual desires. I really wanna free myself from it. So they take on the vow of celibacy, to train in abandoning of those fundamental, deeply rooted desires. But then they break it. But now it's that choice of perversion that comes up. Choice of discrepancy would be, when they break it, they do not confess it. They do not admit it. They do not they don't dare to like basically acknowledge the fault. So they pretend they're still doing it, and it might not even be that say like a person like kind of pre-plans that, oh, I will say I'm celibate or not. It might be that they're lying to themselves. So it might be like a subtle kind of bad faith of, oh yeah, no, I didn't mean to, I am still celibate, and they genuinely believe they're celibate, while actually they keep breaking and contradicting that very, very claim, very state of being. So it's not just like, oh, I say I'm celibate and I lied or something once or twice, and then, I amended my ways and so on. It's more like on the level of lying to yourself and living in that mode of not actually being celibate, but convincing yourself that you are. So you see, it's not like in and of itself, obviously that doesn't harm anybody, so to speak. So it's not like killing somebody or stealing or lying, but you could see the weight of that existential deception, self-imposed, self-created, self-maintained, that is gonna completely like mess up your chitta in a sense of like what where it will head to and what it can do about its own state. Because if you're able to maintain such a degree of self-delusion, you are heading downwards, so to speak, like in terms of your views, in terms of your actions and so on. But again, it's on the basis of your choice, which means a person can technically start choosing to become transparent and question and reevaluate what they believe themselves are or not. So it can be undone, in other words. Then you have the second type of person who, without grounds, as it says, accuses a person who is celibate of not being celibate. So there would be like you could ask yourself, like, why would somebody do that? So what scenario would kind of prompt somebody to do that? To say, oh, he who is celibate, I want to accuse him of not being celibate. I want others to think that he's not celibate. Now, of course, you could have some like individual instances, because they fell out or something, but this speaks like on the level of the principle of somebody engaging with as we can see with the third one, engaging on the level of the view that, I'm not celibate, but I undertaken the claim of being celibate, and I believe I'm celibate, but actually my actions keep contradicting it, and I'm turning a blind eye to it. The second one would be, celibacy basically frightens me. The idea of giving up sensuality is like the abyss, like how when that layman was talking to the Buddha, it says when the householders hear about restraint, it's like a sudden abyss. So it's like that's fine in and of itself. Like experiencing that, it's normal. Like somebody who depends on sensuality, hearing that they have to abandon it, that will be the most natural kind of response. Oh my God, this is frightening. And that's not a problem. The problem is what view you then choose to pretty much develop and fall into, so that you obscure and cover up and protect yourself from that fear and justify not actually doing anything about it. So you could see how then somebody would hear about celibacy, hear about the peril of sensuality, hear about that if you want to make merit and be reborn in heavens and so on, and believes in that, like they need to, put a lid on the degree of animal behavior they engage to engage with, and also the reasons behind engaging with. So it can't be just careless, oh, it's allowed and stuff like that. But then you could see like, oh, that feels like too much of a task. And then the easiest, the first sort of port of call would be, oh, blame those that are able to do it. Because you kind of deep down feel like you're not able to do it. You don't want to do it. You don't want to have to go through it. So let me find fault in those that are doing it and say, no, even they can't do it. Nobody can really do it. They just claim they do it. And you're not really even care about them that much. You're just doing that. You're just doing that to protect yourself. Like to put the view outside that they can be shared by others and partaken in others and affirmed by others, acknowledged by others, validated by others, that, oh yeah, nobody can really do it. Thus, I am exempted from feeling that I must also do it, which then increases that initial fear that I experienced when I heard about the sense restraint in the abyss. And then the third person would be like taking that view, even like say not directly directing it at anybody personally to justify their non-doing, but then just making a statement and developing a belief on the level of a view, which is that no, sensuality is not an obstacle, basically. So they don't even try to take it on and then fail and maybe delude themselves and maybe rectify that. They don't even try to like, oh, let me undermine those that claim it's possible and say that it's not possible. No, they just say, no, the whole view that sensuality is a problem, it's not really a problem. So there is no fault in sensual pleasure. And that's why this one is the worst, actually. Like you can see, it's the most personal in a sense. It only really involves you, doesn't involve your public statement, how others perceive you, doesn't inform what others do. But it's actually the worst because it kind of pertains to self-delusion and obscuring and covering up the most obvious, which is that, you know, if you're honest, even of the most hedonistic person, you know, in the moments of their clarity, could see the kind of the deprivation, the unpleasantness, the unpleasant drive and force of their own desires that they're just subjected to. You know, you would get fatigued, you would get put off if you just honestly look at it. Now, of course, you know, you might decide to ignore it, and most people would, and so on. But that's one thing is to, okay, I can't deal with this, I don't want to do anything about it. But another thing is like, oh no, let me develop a view that will soothe and comfort my own self-imposed delusion. They will then maintain that whole kind of sense of ease that I have in terms of, oh, I don't have to do with this, I don't have to deal with this, I don't have to go through restraint or withdrawal because there is no fault in this anyway. And that's what it says. Because of their view, they will become even more careless in regard to sensuality than they would have been otherwise, even without, say, being celibate and withdrawn. So somebody who kind of, it's on a somewhat, has some sort of recognition of, yeah, you know, it's good to sort of at least moderate your sensuality and engagement and how much time you sort of dwell on it, how far you let your mind take you. It's like, yeah, it's probably good to sort of restrain it a bit, even in the worldly terms. We're not even talking about the practice of the Dhamma now, because it's just about, you know, whether you're going in a state of deprivation or you're going upwards in heavens or better rebirths. So it's like, without, like as I said, even without abandoning sensuality, but at least not completely covering up kind of the obvious coarse, immediately verifiable nature of when desire arises that it's actually unpleasant and that whole thing, you won't be as bad because it will at least keep you somewhat in check when it comes to sensuality. But if you actually, after having heard that sensuality is bad and stuff, you actually choose to go the other way and double down and convince yourself that no, there is no fault in sensuality, you start to override even that basic recognition, which now removed any breaks you had, which means now you would really not think twice about engaging in sensual pleasures because you have successfully convinced yourself that there's absolutely no fault in it. So that's why this is on the level of, yeah, you're destined for the states of deprivation. So that's why it's like, it's not that, you know, say a lay practitioner, somebody who wants to practice, is destined for the state of deprivation simply by not being celibate or something. It's like, no, you need to, one thing is to kind of train and develop and fail and try again through that transparency and recognition with the practices. Another thing is to just like fault find, so to undermine stuff that you heard from others that you should do in terms of practice. Oh no, well look, they don't do it themselves, as if that kind of absolves you from doing it. Or even worse, to say, no, this doesn't need to be abandoned. There is no problem with this. Which, as I said, overrides the basic recognition. And obviously, in the case of somebody who is familiar with the suttas, it's kind of even worse because they override what the Buddha himself said in so many suttas. It's like one thing is to say, oh yeah, maybe, it feels too much now. Maybe I need to work for it gradually and then start working towards right restraint, right intention, and purifying your behavior. Another thing is to say, oh no, that was just for the monks. That doesn't apply to me. Yet at the same time, I claim I follow the Buddha's teaching. So it's just, you could see like the layers and layers of extra kind of perversions and contradictions added to the obvious truth. Like to obvious, anybody honest enough to admit through reading the suttas would arrive at that conclusion. So that's why it's like this is kind of useful. I included this sutta because, like, leading to the next one that I wanted to talk about, it was kind of just to recognize that the training of like freeing yourself from your desires, being able to contain them and free yourself, it's not like something you just can adhere to externally. Even if, as I said before, you keep all the precepts perfectly, but don't make the effort to actually train in those principles, you'll still remain bound with the same desires. You're just not acting out of them, and that's good, as the Buddha said. Even if somebody spends the rest of his life just crying with pains of restraint, but doesn't go back to those desires, he's still heading upwards. He's still heading to heavens, at least, if he doesn't get the right view. But obviously, more needs to be done. And that's that whole training that we often talk about, recognizing your intentions and stuff. It's not just a question of saying no, blanket no to everything that your mind ever wants. So that's like the second sutta, like the three origins for the arising of action. And it's like when the desire arises for the past phenomena, future phenomena, or the present phenomena. So that is what's considered an action. So acting out of a desire, it's what karma is, as we said before. So, and how does the desire arise? Well, when, say, a phenomena concerning past, future, or present, doesn't matter what thoughts or what perceptions would have come up, that can serve as grounds for desire and lust, and certain things universally serve as grounds for desire and lust for everybody, but for different people there's going to be some kind of idiosyncratic variations. Like something will not be lustful for somebody due to their own history, culture, upbringing, but for somebody else will be, due to your past actions as well, like what you've been choosing so far and so on. The lust grows and proliferates and gets associated with new things or disassociated from some other things. So the point is not to examine the nature of those phenomena. The point is to recognize whatever phenomena has arisen. Is there a corresponding possibility of lust? Is there an incentive? Is there a pressure towards lust? That already qualifies enough. You don't need to know more about the type and the content and how this phenomena came to be and so on. That's all pretty much irrelevant. So, with reference to past, future, present phenomena, the grounds for desire and lust, one repeatedly thinks and ponders them along the same lines with the mind. So that's the key here. You have perceptions arising, whether sight, sound, smell, taste, touches, thoughts in regard to past, future, or present, doesn't matter. As I said, they come up with an offer, with a promise, with a push in a certain directions, even if you don't necessarily know where or what specifically your desire wants you to do or have or perceive. You can already tell it's going to be something. It's sending you in a direction. So the pressure, it's already felt. That's like unmistakable. You already know that. So whenever something pressuring arises, that it's sort of kind of pushing for the thoughts, for the momentum behind the thoughts. Oh yeah, let me go with this and think about it. That's what this means, that one repeatedly thinks and ponders them along the same lines. So it's not like, something arises and I reflect on it, or I just broadly, abstractly think about it. It's like, when it's coming out of that thread of compulsion, even before it's defined as compulsion necessarily, because the pressure is already a form of compulsion. So are your thoughts, past, future, present phenomena, doesn't matter, connected? Are they infused, and are they sort of exhibiting that pressure on you to continue thinking along the lines that they presented themselves with? If it's, positive, positive in the sense of like desirable, agreeable, to think more, ponder, engage with it, speak about it, expose your senses to it, and so on. Or even it works the same way in the opposite. Like if it's aversive, same. The pressure arises for aversion to go along the lines of aversion that's already implied that phenomena is pushing you towards. So that's that middle ground, that right level I often talk about, that people need to discern. And the only way to discern that is to first stop automatically acting out of these things, acting out of desire towards more of it, and then acting out of aversion towards trying to get rid of the entire experience. In other words, trying to deny, remove, distract yourself away, concentrate yourself away from the present phenomena, because you don't see the difference between present phenomena that are grounds for desire and the actual desire and lust that is pretty much your doing. How is your doing? Well, you repeatedly allow, think and ponder, choose to go along the lines that they offer. So what happens when you don't go along the lines that they offer? Well, the lines remain there, not followed. The pressure remains there, dried up. That's how you see through it. So while one is repeatedly thinking and pondering them along the same lines, desire will grow, it will arise, it will become even more associated with those phenomena, and mind, the animal, will be completely fettered by that bond. Then whatever you do in response to that, go on a retreat, sense deprivation, all of that is to manage the past, future, present phenomena and possibility of their arising. None of that addresses the mind's lust, the desire towards those things. It's like starving the animal. You cannot keep it still, you cannot train it, you cannot teach it to only eat the right food. All you can do is let it eat or completely starve it. And then you starve it on a retreat, on a super intense concentration, nostril watching practice, or whatever other kind of methods of denial you might engage with. But then when that wears out, and it will, the animal still has no knowledge, no difference between eating things that are not the ground for desire and eating things and engaging with things that are the ground for desire, because the mind needs to learn that. So that's how desire arises. And then the Buddha goes to describe how desire does not arise. Well, one understands the subsequent results of past and future present phenomena that are ground for desire and lust. So, how, bhikkhus, does desire not arise with regard to past, future, present phenomena that are ground for it? Well, one understands the subsequent results that are ground for it. So, one now understands the implicit results that follow from this, that are implicit in it. Not like, I have to go through subsequent results to understand this. No. One presently understands that. And that's how one turns away from this desire now. That's what the sutta describes. Not like, go through it until you're jaded, and then you can tell yourself, see, I'm desireless now. No, you're just tired. Your animal is asleep because he got what he wanted. He may be even sick because he overate. But again, that will go away, and it will going to go back to the same things because he hasn't learned. So it's understanding the implicit results of the phenomena that are ground for desire and lust right now. Understanding what they imply way before you end up there. That's how the mind turns away from them. That's how desire will not grow. It will diminish, and it will not become associated now with those phenomena. So the practical examples of this would be, well, pretty much any reflection done rightly. So, the reflections like a subha reflection, or even, as I said, even like in terms of the ill will and so on, you could undermine the same thing. If you first don't follow immediately along the lines of the pressure, the lines that pressure kind of offers you to think about, to follow along, you say no to that, but then you don't deny the pressure, because again, you need to, as the sutta says later, you need to penetrate through it, you need to understand it, not just replace it with something else that suits you. So the problem is not past, future, present phenomena that are ground for lust. The problem is that whenever they're present, the mind cannot but help it fall into lust. So you want to teach the mind in regard to those prompts, in regard to those things, not just get rid of them, have something else there. So the subsequent results, the implicit results, could be anything from like, well, as the sutta says, like in some sutta, like the danger of sensuality is having to work and plow fields, having to earn, having to protect what you earn, being exposed to the elements, having to deal with other people. Those are the dangers. And it's like, yeah, they are the implicit results, even if it's like we're looking 20 years later. But whatever works on different times, if that's what your desire aims, well, those will be the subsequent implicit results that become revealed when you don't follow along the lines automatically. If, on the other hand, you don't think that far, you could bring it to the immediate, such as the natural disgust of the body. Say in terms of the sexual desire, which is already like a form of consumption, like not acting out of it, not trying to deny that there is, again, mind leading towards lust, not following the thoughts, fantasies that are outlined there, the directions of those, not allowing them the center stage, as I said in previous talks. And then instead, choosing to think, again, within the same setup of past, future, present phenomena ground for desire, you choose to think the factually non-desiring aspects at the same time, so concurrently. So one of the implicit results of a more immediate kind would be consuming or engaging with a form that's subjectively disgusting. And you would do that if you ignore the disgusting aspects. But if you have the disgusting aspects there, again, not as a replacement to the past, future, present phenomena, but as a kind of additional context. So I'm not trying to replace, I'm just trying to include it at the same time and let the mind decide. And that's the key here. That's the right balance. The right balance is setting up a subha, setting up non-ill will, not as a replacement, as a force to replace and change the mind, but as something so that even enough with the pressures towards lust or towards ill will, even enough so that the mind can see both equally, and then it will naturally actually prefer then, oh, yeah, this is not desirable. Because the only reason things are desirable is because the non-desirable aspects are ignored or are thought about after as an afterthought, not presented and maintained on the same right level. So it doesn't kind of seep through the association that, oh, any desire, any involvement with the desirable sight, sound, smell, taste, touches is inseparable. It's the same thing as these disgusting organs and brain and bile and excrement and all these other reflections that that monks are encouraged to do, or anybody who wants to free themselves from sensuality should be doing. But again, not as an empty practice mantra, mechanical that you go through, but as something that, sure, you might think of it like when you have no desire. Think about it. Think about it in that really palpable sense of these disgusting aspects. But the point is so that you can be able to, that when the mind is aroused or pressured with the desire, you're able to also bring up this context and keep it there for the mind until the mind comes down. And it will. That's how you know, I don't need to get rid of the mind. I don't need to destroy the world. I don't need to pull my eyes out to never see anything agreeable. I just need to never willingly choose to go along the default lines of the pressure and then be lazy in terms of bringing up the other counterpart, the other side of the same coin at the same time, just to that extent. I don't need to force it further. Because you might feel like you start bringing up the subha to the right extent and you see like the mind just completely losing the desire, and then you feel like, okay, let me push it harder. Let me give it more subha now. It's like, no, now you're falling from the tune. You're falling from the right music. Now it's getting too tight. That's where you have to stay patient. It's like, no. I'll keep it only. But then the mind will come up. Yeah, the mind will come up again, and I'll again set up the right balance and maintain it until the mind learns that this thing that it wants is actually this thing. It's just the one aspect of this fundamentally repulsive, fundamentally non-desirable in that way thing. That's it. That's to the extent that you need to do it. So that's how. And that's also, an implicit result. Like if I now allow these thoughts or desires, the implicit result of that is me consuming the excrement, me being in contact with bile, me with being factually like in touch with things that I wouldn't touch otherwise. Even as that other sutta says, when that man was offering his daughter to the Buddha, so I wouldn't touch that foam with my foot. Like what do you want me to do with it? So it's like you factually wouldn't do it if it's presented like a non organs, bile, the stuff that body is made of. So that's another subsequent result of my engagement, is me actually being in contact, being in touch, being bound with stuff that I factually, in isolation, would deem repulsive, would deem like, oh, what was I thinking type of thing. So you want to have that context present when there is that offer of, oh, think along these lines, just relax and go along this, give the mind the fantasy it wants, or, if you're not engaging in the bodily or verbal behavior, but still now the fantasy becomes the expression of it. So it's like, no, I got to counter that as well. By, instead of going along those lines, I'll maintain these lines, I'll maintain these perceptions. Just, again, I'm not expecting any instantaneous kind of insight and resolution. I'm just keeping it there to make sure the mind knows that, well, if you want this has to be there with it. Cannot not be there. And that's the diligence, that's the practice that one does, that then results in there will be no desire and lust spreading, growing, and the arisen one will diminish. Without you needing to distract yourself away, concentrate yourself away from any past, future, present, traumas, memories, preferences, doesn't matter. All of that is addressed presently through diminishing and uprooting the desire towards it, towards having it, towards dealing with it, towards getting rid of it, towards whatever, basically, whatever direction your mind wants to take. So let me just see, were there any more questions? So yeah, I think I kind of mentioned, like, a touch upon it. Maybe even I spoke about it more. But basically, yeah, like, so why, for example, when it says past phenomena, future phenomena, present phenomena, why is the only way of penetrating them, understanding them here and now, in the present? Because desire and lust are always in the present. Like, if you think about your past desire and lust, if now you have desire on account of you thinking about your past engagement with phenomena and objects of desire and lust, that is your present desire. Same. Thinking about the future, planning, you want it now, that's your present desire. That's your action. So thinking about the future is not a problem. Past that you've been through, that you cannot change, is not a problem. Having still desire or aversion even, now, that's where the connection is still maintained. That's where the problem still exists. So you remove the desire now, you would have overcome your entire past. Doesn't matter how wild would have been, could have been, and so on. Same with the future. Doesn't matter how insecure or uncertain, it won't affect you now, because there is no desire to interfere with it. There is no desire to change it. There is no desire to address it, because, well, you understood that the problem was never in those phenomena that are ground for lust. The problem was in your own currently maintained desire towards it. So I did ask, like, what does it mean to penetrate it with the mind? And I answered it. It's obviously like people answer that rightly. It's like, what means that the animal needs to understand it. It's not just about you figuring it out. And that's why another kind of, another reason why I often say contemporary practices, meditation techniques actually take you in a completely different direction, in opposite direction of where you should be going. Anytime you think, well, concentration helps and helps me focus, helps me calm down, all of that pertains to you and your choice of attention, what you choose to attend, what you choose to ignore. None of that results in animal actually getting the right message, in animal actually understanding for itself. Because your focusing away, your concentration aims, as I said already, aims at dealing with phenomena that are ground for lust. Aims with avoiding sight, sound, smell, taste, touches, and thoughts that are ground for lust. Past How do I deal with past traumas? Well, practice mindfulness, body sensations, focus here and now, don't think about it. Or often, as you hear in the contemporary tradition, it's like, well, future is not yet, so stop thinking about it. Don't dwell on the past, just let go of it. As if past and future are the problem. Those thoughts are the problem. So how do I deal with it? I deal with it by concentrating on the present moment, present nostril. When that's not enough, you need to increase the present moment. You need to make it even more specific. So it's not incidental that all the Abhidhammas and similar views, similar meditation techniques and practices evolved in that direction to the point of now you are seeing imaginary kalapas that don't really exist. They exist in your fantasy as the real measures of objective experience that is subatomic level of like your perception is just complete nonsense. They would have exactly the same direction of how you would have started. Let me just focus on here and now and not think about these things because I don't know how to deal with the pressure when it arises. Yet the sutta clearly says how to deal with it. Don't follow it along. Doesn't say concentrate away until those phenomena never come again. No, don't follow along and instead think about the implicit results that are already known. Maintain them diligently within that framework and desire will subside. And you would have risen above the past and the future and everything else. Because you would have been now fully disconnected from it. So that's the point to recognize, like pretty much any time you engage with the practice, whatever technique, whatever method, whatever sort of practice you're doing, but if that is rooted in dealing with phenomena that are ground for lust, if it's aiming at them, you are not seeing the mind, you're not seeing the basis for training the mind. Which means the mind will not get the right message. The mind will not penetrate through what it needs to penetrate. Because you keep basically pointing at the wrong things as the root of the problem. So when it says the mind penetrates means, okay, so you would have stopped trying to deal with past, future, present phenomena, the ground for lust, as the problem. Drew a line to not give in by body, by speech, mentally started being diligent to not follow the choices of, I'll think along them, along with what they offer, even if it's just a little bit. It's like, no. Instead of thinking along, I'll bring up something else to be there with that pressure. So that the mind remembers, like, this is what's waiting for me when I go there. And that, as I said, can be an immediate kind of disgust in regard to what's wanted, or can be like a broad implications of where this leads to. Whatever helps the mind sit back down. Whatever helps the dog that jumped up ready to go, sit back down and reconsider the direction he wants to go. Yeah, it was like that kind of reminded me, I think it was that Forest Masters, that book or something. I think I mentioned it once. I don't think I finished it, but it was like these kind of stories about the Thai monks of the time. And I think one of the Ajahn Chah contemporaries or something like that, he was like living in the forest, but then his head monk called him back to go back to the temple to do his duties. And then he was stuck there for like over a year. And the mind just got infected with sensuality, fantasies, because he was just like living in a busy Bangkok place with like women around and stuff. And then he was like really kind of on the verge of just disrobing and started fantasizing, get a good Bangkok wife, start a business together. He has all these ideas, start a family. But then that's obviously worked for him, and you could see. But then he was like, let me take that further. So it was like, okay, so I could disrobe and, find a wife. Maybe there are already some candidates. Do this, do that. Buy a house, have a good income. Then we'll probably, start arguing, start disagreeing. She'll be like this, I will be like that. Then we'll probably divorce. Then probably this, then probably that. And then his whole desire went around in a full loop and came back to like, I might as well not go down that path, which kind of bought him some time until I think, look, I don't know, whatever the story is, Ajahn Man passed through and then took him with him type of thing, and that kind of saved him. But it is already implicit, and even if you stop, say, when there is no acute desire, you can think in those broad terms, and it does not necessarily mean it will be abstract or inaccurate if those broad terms start pertaining to the actual implications of your desire. So said, you have to work there. You have to kind of not just go through the motions of asubha or something, but actually let me philosophically consider this. Where would this lead me? Like, do I already not know? Have I not tried it before? Have I not done it before? What are the implications of me committing to this? And really allow those answers to sink in. That's already a form of regathering a certain context that can help the mind from just automatically following along the lines. So seeing a divorce as a implicit, subsequent, inescapable outcome, separation from any type of pairing, it's already like, oh, it does devalue it quite a bit if you allow it to sink in. If you make the effort to actually reflect and think about it and have those thoughts, those contexts present and enduring. So that's how the mind penetrates things. Now it's your own mind, the animal, that doesn't want that. So when those phenomena come up, that pressure, there was pretty much your own animal, untamed animal, going, immediately leaping up at the possibility, lessens. Because the animal already sees what's implicit. Because you've shown it enough. You haven't been trying to replace those things blindly and deal with those phenomena or concentrate away or not experience them ever again. No, instead, when they came, you broadened the context. You really showed it what it's like. Same, like, a child wants to, I don't know, stick its hand into a power in a plug. You can tell it no, and for some children, maybe, yeah, that will be enough, but somebody, no, they won't see it. So you show them what happens. You show them the implicit result of what will happen if you do it. So it's like, that's what I mean, like you need to make these connections, not just abstractly go, but really like feel those connections like that. This is a good chance this will be a real outcome. This is the implicit 90% unavoidable. And if it's avoidable, it will be something else in terms of specificity, but still sharing pretty much the same nature. Separation, disgust, aging, loss of senses, all of those are implicit things that are unavoidable, and they are not a problem for as long as you're not dependent on the senses. And how you're dependent on the senses? Well, through having sense desires unchecked, growing, proliferating, becoming your mode of being as the only way of knowing how to escape the pain. That's when those things become a problem. So you realize, okay, so before I engage with these things, if I always have the context of the implicit outcome of my own senses, for example, which is kind of immediate and delayed at the same time, the implication can be recognized on both levels, that's already enough to like, oh, a sense of danger of going down this path. And then you can refine that further and further to any extent, to match any extent the desire or pressure arises. If it's a lot, coarse, give it a broad one. If it's these subtle pushes, well, match them to that level. But the point is the mind needs to understand it. The mind needs to penetrate it through and through. And that's not going to happen through the mere practice of just think about something else, don't think about the future, just stop thinking, concentrate now, the techniques and stuff. That's just like completely, as I said, obscures it even further. Because you're reinforcing the view that the problem was in those phenomena, not in your own desire, an untrained mind that remains it becomes even worse now, like you're not even seeing it. And any chance to see it now has been buried even deeper through engaging in developing further these wrong views that become further and further fetters and increasing of the obstacles. So it's like, yeah. Oh yeah, so somebody did say, send that, it's quite a good sutta, like, just that adds to this this whole kind of practice we described, like with both suttas together, really like a recognition that sense desires are an issue. And even if, say, I don't want to be a monk, I don't want to train for enlightenment, that still doesn't mean you should just completely keep your desires unchecked. It will still benefit you, even in this life, let alone like, the subsequent lives and so on. But the point is, yeah, so when people hear that, the sensuality, the problem of it, say they're not necessarily finding faults by default. They're not necessarily saying, oh no, this is not a problem, like these, the three types of people. Which, by the way, it wasn't like, it was common back in the Buddha's day as well. And that's what this person sent this sutta saying, like, when the Majjhima 75, when he called the Buddha, he's the destroyer of growth. So he was trying to disparage the Buddha. By disparaging the Buddha, you then disparage everything that he tells you need to do for liberation. And he says, well, what do you mean by destroyer of growth? Do you mean that the I that delights in forms, takes delight in forms, rejoices in forms, has been tamed by Tathagata, has been subdued, guarded, protected, restrained? The Tathagata teaches the Dhamma for the purpose of restraint of the senses. Is the reference to that what you said, that reckless Gautama is destroyer of growth? And he said, yeah, that's why we call you a destroyer of growth, because you're telling us to practice sense restraint, basically. You're a destroyer of growth. You're a destroyer of the nature, of the right things, or whatever. Basically just trying to disparage him, so to not have to do it. So it's like, okay, you don't go that far. You don't disparage the Buddha. You don't disparage, don't disparage maybe people when, or even like what you read or hear. See, that's another thing. Like, for example, like say you never heard that sensuality is a problem. And then you come across it. You heard it. Somebody told you. You read a book or something. It didn't cross your mind before. That might be like a real scenario. But then now it did. What do you do now? What do you do now when you heard about it? Like, do you automatically go into defense mode? Who does he think he is? No, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Oh, he's a destroyer of growth. Oh, he's a fanatic. Whatever names you want to call. It's like, that's already a level, increasing the level of dishonesty. Because all of that now is rooted in an obvious, irrational mechanism of self-defense. Who are you to say that? It doesn't matter. Even if a person that themselves don't keep celibacy, don't keep any rules, tell you that celibacy is beneficial, they're still right. That's even the Buddha said that. They're like people that encourage others to do right things and they do it themselves. That's great. Then you have the ones that encourage others to do the same things, but they don't do it themselves. But it's still great that they encourage others. And then you have ones that don't encourage others and they don't do it themselves. They are the worst. Because again, if you're an honest, transparent person, even if I say a person who doesn't keep no rules, no precepts, nothing, tells you about it, and it would be easy to dismiss because, look at them. How are they behaving? He's like, hey, but that's not my concern. My concern is to genuinely take what I heard now and see, hold on. So why is my mind immediately resisting this? Sure, even if maybe somebody proves to me later on that, yeah, look, sensuality was not an obstacle, which obviously it's impossible, but say, for the argument's sake, somebody can prove to you that sense desires are not an obstacle later on. Now you don't know that. All you know now is that when you think about sense restraint, the mind kicks and screams. When you think about sense restraint, the aversion comes up. Blame those who told me. Disparage them. Or, I'll just cover this whole thing up and say, no, that's not true. And leave it there. Not really understand why is that not true. Or understand why it's true. So if you're an honest person, even if hearing a third, fourth person's account about it, if you're an honest person, you would be taking that on. Philosophically, what if this is true? What does that result in? What does that make my mind do? And then you, as I said, even if somebody gives you an answer later, whatever, in regard to sensuality, you realize that that's all secondary. For you, here and now, the problem is that the mind resists a mere hypothetical scenario of saying no to the desires. That's an acute problem now. And that should concern you. Not like, I must become celibate and perfectly restrained overnight or something, or I must have the ultimate authority prove to me that sense desires are bad before I give them up. All of that becomes secondary. What's primary is that even merely hearing about it, your mind resists and you're overwhelmed by it. Or you don't want to deal with it. Or you don't recognize that as a problem. So, and that's the whole point of when people that develop the right view, became Sotapanna, said, even if the whole world comes and says everything the Buddha said was wrong, you know that cannot be correct. Because you would have verified for yourself where the problem was. So somebody said, sense desires are bad. After the initial panic, initial name calling, initial fault finding, you said, okay, but even if they're bad or not bad, the point is, why did my mind, simply by hearing that, reject the idea so much? Surely I should investigate that. Surely I should maybe, hey, come back here, let's work with this, regardless of what answer in regard to sensuality we get later. I want you to not be so affected, so overwhelmed, so panicked when you hear about the precipice of sense restraint. And then when that's developed, let's take it further and think about really if it's not an obstacle or not. But see, the fact that the mind already resisted, that's already an obstacle itself. The fact that you just go along with it and you don't want to deal with it and you want to blame the others or dismiss the whole thing or whatever, that's an obstacle. So you already got an immediate verification that sensuality is obstacle, because saying no to sensuality, there will be no untrained mind that hasn't practiced rightly, that when they hear about restraint, will prefer it. Every single mind, when they hear about restraint, will resist it. To different extents, different people, different amount of dust in their eyes, but they will not want to do it. Today at least. Maybe back in the Buddha's day, there were ones that immediately leaped upon the opportunity because they saw the benefit from it. But naturally, today, first and foremost will be resistance of the mind. And that's a problem. Regardless of, say, we find new suttas verified through that laser technology, that they were authentic, that, the Buddha said, actually, sensuality is not that big of a deal. It still doesn't matter. You would know that, that did not come from the Buddha, because I verified for myself that whenever restraint is presented, the mind resists it. And resistance of the mind that I have to follow along is always an obstacle. It's always a fetter. It's the root of suffering. By any stretch, by any definition, it's the root of all problems. Untamed mind. So, whatever technical answer you might find and give through some, say, hypothetical, for argument's sake, scenarios, you still know what's correct right now, because the mind is still resisting it. If it's tamed, if it's not panicking, not trying to push you away from it, great. It's not a problem either way. But if you start doing that, if you take it on that level and start training, you will very quickly realize, oh no, this is always a problem, and there is no other way, and there will be no future answer that will tell you, oh, sensuality was never a problem. Because you realize that anytime you engage with it, it was through ignoring the fact that it was a problem, through ignoring the fact that animal was driving you and controlling you, through ignoring the fact that that's actually bothersome and frightening in and of itself, that lack of control. But you just go along because, hey, we get what we want, so then there is no further second guessing. So you kind of develop a degree of comfort and familiarity with it, until basically all it takes is not get what you want, be separated from what you had, and the whole thing just breaks apart and just shows you how fickle the whole setup was. So as I said, if you actually say, even if you're not convinced by the argument that sensuality is always a problem and you see no reason in moderating it, just do it for the philosophically, just for the philosophy's sake, for the sake of understanding it. Hypothetically say, what if just for a week I say no to my main sensual desires, and see what will that do to your mind, and then really honestly say at the end of it, oh, that's not the problem. The fact that my mind can turn against me to such a violent extent with fear and pressure, that's surely a problem. Anybody with any degree of honesty, with an ounce of transparency, would not be able to ignore that as a problem, as a root of all problems. The untamed mind, untrained one.
Yeah, I had a personal experience regarding the mind and the situation. So I was thinking to ask actually how I could do this well about my situation. So I had a conflict with my coworker.
Okay.
Coworker, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, conflict means like verbal or like kind of behavioral. So it's like not fighting,
Yeah.
Yes, I was trying my best to think about it again and again, but automatically my mind was back, like a loop of thoughts going on. Like I could say, I could see the like a film, what would happen and all these things, and all the time it's bad feeling, angry, not satisfied, what I could do, what this person could do, and it's kind of discussion. So I was trying to avoid these thoughts. So as I listen to you, it's like, is it? I was trying to like focus my thoughts to, like, for example, when I was walking in the forest, I was like trying to focus my steps rather than thinking what was going on there. But yeah, it was quite difficult because automatically my mind was
Yeah,
like
it doesn't.
going
It
again
doesn't
and
work.
again.
Like,
Yeah,
doesn't matter
yeah,
how
yeah,
much
yeah.
you improve your concentration. Uh,
Hmm.
all that's going to result in is you becoming more and more precious about controlling your environment, which means more and more things will then be triggering of the same states.
So my
So
question is,
what do you do?
what should I do?
Yeah.
I mean the best way that I could
Yeah.
deal with this situation well.
Well, the
This was
most
my.
immediate thing, say it's like, well, the most immediate thing, obviously, when that is happening, is if you're still in that situation, well, don't do anything by body or speech, bite your tongue, type of thing. Doesn't matter the amount of pressure and the pain that comes. And then afterwards, say when the mind is just revolving around it, the point is trying to concentrate away from it tries to deny the whole state of mind that's there and then. So you can't stop the momentum because it will take time to start slowing it down. So in those scenarios, when the mind wants, basically when you can't help but think about, direct that to thinking about other aspects that are not where the mind wants to go. Of the same thing, by the way, not completely different. So in your case, say a coworker has said something and now you walk through a park and the mind is just rehashing what he said and what you should have said and what next time you'll say, and then but maybe you shouldn't. But there's like, instead all of that, think about, hold on, I am walking in the park now regarding something that happened before and my mind is burning. The animal is actually burning. Let me think about the burning animal trying to get me to act, not what it wants me to think about. Because that is a factual state of affairs that's being overlooked by you following along the lines offered by the animal. Because factually, the only reason all of that is a problem, who said what, and next time, and this, and yesterday, and in 5 days in the future, it's all because it's unpleasant here and now, that state of the animal. And that pain is something you just want to get rid of. So instead, think about the pain. Think about the pain of the animal. Like factually. Like, oh, hold on. I am walking through the park. Pressure to think about. I know exactly what thoughts it will be even without having to think about them. I see where it's going. I see where it's been repeating. The mind's burning. I can feel it. I can feel the discomfort. And that thing is really as such. Experience really as such. That phenomena of that mind state driving me, forcing me, trying to force me to accept these choices along these lines and think further and so on and resolve it. That's real as such. That pressure is real as such and I'm feeling it. So I can't think about that because that's not what the mind wants you to think about. Mind wants you to think about the content. Wants to think about the coworker or who said what and this and this and this and this and this. We just increases the desire to get rid of it, increases the aversion, increases this, increases the whole bond, so to speak, increases the theta. So instead, think about the grounds for all of that you are going through now. The grounds that very much is felt most acutely, even more than your fantasy, even more than the thoughts you're going through. The fact is, the burning mind is real as such and it's right here and I can't stop it. Hold on. Am I supposed to stop it? Is that what the one who understood the Buddha's teaching rightly would do? Is that what I learned? Should I just stop this animal now that's burning? Or should I contain it? Should I not follow along the lines? Or should I just completely, as I said, choke it, asphyxiate it, get rid of it, replace it with a different state of mind? It's like, oh, but then I'm still acting out of the animal. So the main reason people keep falling into these patterns of like loops and vicious cycles and not able to, it's because they never address the real thing, which is the actual state of mind right there and then. I mean, they know it, obviously. You cannot know it. You're feeling it. But they go about it in every possible way except the way of, hold on, how about I keep looking at you instead of what you are offering me to look at? And even if it's rooted in the same aversion, it's less inaccurate than going along the lines, which means they're going to be less desire fettering you, less kind of involvement, which in return is going to make things clearer, which in return is going to make it next time even less inaccurate, and less inaccurate to the point of you'll be seeing it accurately right through. But it needs to be an active effort, and in this case, as I said, I mean, it's always an active effort. Trying to concentrate away, it's an active effort. It just falls flat. You concentrate away, but then 5 seconds later, the mind is still same spiral. The only time it stops, it's after 4, 5, 6 hours have passed, hopefully. Sometimes not even then. Sometimes 3 or 4 days, it still comes back. So you realize, oh, okay, basically, I am making the effort either way in trying to get rid of it, trying to concentrate away from it. How about instead I think about the real source of the issue here? Reflect on it, ask questions about it. Everything, just don't go along the offered lines of thought. That's it. It's like, do I need to get rid of it? No. So why am I trying to get rid of it? Well, I don't know, because I forgot that I don't have to get rid of it. So what if this state of mind stays for the rest of the day, but me not fueling it? I don't need to do anything. There is no right thing I could have said or I should have said. All of that is fueled by the pain that the burning mind puts on you and you take for granted as something that I must deal with. And then you overlook the level where you can deal with it, and you think that dealing with it is our practice, my communication skills or something, so that this will be prevented in the future. It's like you're still not dealing with it here and now. You're addressing the future, the phenomena that pertains to the future that is basis for desire and lust, as we just described. That's what you're addressing. You're not addressing desire and lust right now. So instead of falling into the trap, or when you fall into trap and you recognize, you could like, oh, hold on, I have fallen into a trap. The burning mind pushed me into it. I didn't see it. Is it still burning? Yes. Is it still unpleasant? Yes. Do I need to do anything about it? Well, I have a strong urge, but I don't have to do anything about it. How about I make the effort of not doing anything about it, but not losing the sight of it either? Which is already a form of doing something about it, just not on your own terms, not on the terms that are infused with lust and craving and that vicious cycle. So you can use the same momentum against the mind. Instead of thinking the content that it offers, you think about the state of mind, the pressure, the unpleasantness of it, how unbeneficial it is to not have it trained when something so trivial can disrupt it so much. It's like, oh no, you are the problem. Not the colleague, not what I said, not what I should have said, not me refusing to think with what you want me to think, and then mind tries to pressure. None of that's the problem. You are the problem. You're the problem that you're still capable of such upset, of such lust, of such desire, of such force. That's the problem, and I need to keep an eye on it, because that's how I begin taming it. And then for as long as the momentum lasts, that long you use the momentum to think about the mind that's pushing you into that momentum. That's really, again, it's not an abstract thing, because it's going to be felt very much so. Oh, where's my mind? Where is this animal? It's right there where that pain is. That is what the mind is. So it's like, oh, this pain is the mind. Here and now, in practical terms, don't get all technical, the practical terms, it's what the mind is. It's what stands for the mind most accurately there and then. Affected with aversion, affected with lust, with all the implications that it has. It's like, so you are the problem. I can't get rid of it. I can't just remove the mind, not have it. Well, if you never read the suttas or listened to our talks, you would say, I don't really know what to do, but you heard so many times, so you know what to do. Like, you have the information. Oh, you are the problem. I shall not fuel it, but I shall not try to deny you either. I will recognize you as the problem. And then when you are not a problem, I will recognize you as not a problem. And then stay with it. And whenever it comes up, the trigger or whatever, you're like, It's the mind that's the trigger, not the specific thoughts that feels like prompted you and made you feel this or made you feel that. No, it's the animal. It's the animal still being touchy, still being twitchy, still being liable to these things. So by seeing the animal, you already kind of dealt with 50% of the problem, which is not seeing the animal and falling into the loops. It's not going to be perfect, as I said. You're going to fall into loops and catch yourself. But whenever you catch yourself, you don't double down. I must try harder to concentrate away from the whole thing and shut my mind. No, I must try harder to not lose the corner of my eye from the pressuring problem here and now, which is the state of chitta. The sole problem, always. There was never any other problem in your life. It was always the state of chitta, affected with only three things: greed, aversion, or distraction. There is no fourth. Just these three things, always on that level. And I always keep saying that because it always ties into everything. It's like that sutta when they asked the Buddha, oh, you said Dhamma is directly visible here and now. How is it so? And you would think, oh, because you concentrate on a subatomic particle of the multitude of your insight of some secret hidden dimensions. It's like, no, Dhamma is visible here and now when you know mind of lust as mind of lust. In other words, when you have not fallen into a trap or follow along the lines, got distracted, got lost, or acted out, even worse. When you know mind of aversion as mind of aversion, mind of distraction, mind of distraction. Like when you know the state of mind for what it is, when you see it, aha, I see you. You are the issue. You reacting to this way, that way, sometimes like this. You are the problem. Your lack of tameness, lack of your desires, dependence on desires. You are the problem, and that's how you see the Dhamma here and now, directly visible. Even if you had no instruction in Dhamma whatsoever, you are practicing along the Dhamma, which means again you would be developing rightly.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, yeah, when the pressure is so strong, I think it constantly avoid me to focus exactly. I mean, to identify the mind. Always go back to the scenario, and
So basically the pressure is making you focus on things the mind wants you focused. And then the best a person can do is let me focus on something else. Just focus, just forget about this. But that does not teach the mind right things. So instead of focusing, unabsorb yourself. When the momentum is trying to get you boiled down to the specifics, don't focus on that. Unfocus yourself from the specifics to basically re-feel the state of mind that's already felt. And stay on that level of being unabsorbed to the momentum that's trying to absorb you.
Thank you.
Welcome.